They woke up to an ordinary morning. Bread was still warm in the ovens. Footsteps echoed on stone streets. Children ran between houses, laughing. Pompeii did not know it had already run out of time. There was no sudden explosion, no instant darkness, no single moment when everything ended. Instead, the city was given time. Time to look up, time to hesitate, time to choose the wrong direction. Above them, the mountain had been watching for centuries. Quiet, still, familiar. That morning, it finally spoke. Not with fire, but with a sound so deep it felt like the sky itself had cracked. At first, people didn't run. They stood in doorways, they shielded their eyes. They told each other it would pass. Pompeii was not destroyed in a moment. It was slowly erased, while its people were still alive to understand what was happening. This is not the story of a volcano. This is the story of a city that was buried while it was still breathing.
Pompeii was alive, not legendary, not frozen in history. Alive in the most ordinary way. People complained about the heat. Merchants argued over prices. Homes smelled of oil, bread, and smoke. The city had survived earthquakes before. Walls cracked, temples leaned, but life always returned to normal. So when the ground trembled again, no one panicked. They had learned to live with fear, as long as it didn't interrupt their routine. Mount Vesuvius was part of the landscape, a shadow on the horizon, a presence so familiar it became invisible. No one imagined it was hollow. In the early hours, a column rose from the mountain, tall, unnatural, towering above the clouds. Some pointed, some stared, some went back inside. Ash began to fall, light at first, like dust shaken from the sky. People swept it from their steps, shook it from their hair, laughed nervously. The city was still calm. That calm would cost them everything. As the hours passed, the air grew heavy. Breathing felt different, slower, strained. Roofs began to creak. Still, many stayed, because leaving meant abandoning homes, shops, memories, and because no one told them how bad it would become. Pompeii was not warned. There were no alarms, no signs, only instinct, and instinct is often wrong. Some families packed quickly, others waited. They believed the mountain would stop. It never did. By afternoon, daylight dimmed into something unfamiliar. Not night, something worse. A darkness that moved. Ash thickened. Footsteps disappeared under layers of gray. People tied cloth around their faces, held hands, prayed to gods who did not answer. And still, many did not leave, because Pompeii had given them time, enough time to hope, not enough time to escape. At some point, people understood. Not all at once, not together. Understanding arrived alone, in separate homes, on separate streets, inside separate minds. It arrived when doors refused to open, when ash pressed against wood like a weight, when the air tasted wrong. By then, Pompeii had changed. The sky was no longer above them, it was around them. Daylight vanished without becoming night. Torches burned weak, swallowed by drifting gray. People tried to run, but running was different now. Every step sank, every breath scratched the chest. Every sound felt distant, as if the city itself was underwater. Roofs began to fall. not violently, quietly. One beam at a time, one house at a time. People screamed warnings that no one could hear. Families separated in the confusion. Hands slipped. Voices disappeared into the dark. Some reached the city gates, only to find roads erased, buried, unrecognizable. The world they knew no longer existed. Pompeii was becoming something else, a maze without exits. Ash piled higher. Streets became trenches. The city forced people to slow down, and slowing down meant staying. Those who had waited too long realized the truth too late. This was no longer about escape. It was about endurance. People hid in rooms, under stairs, against walls. They wrapped cloth tighter, held children closer, counted breaths. Every minute felt heavier than the last. The city was still standing, but it was no longer alive.
Then the city grew quiet. Not suddenly, gradually. Screams faded. Footsteps stopped. The last prayers dissolved into the air. What remained was not destruction, but stillness. Pompeii did not burn. It suffocated. Ash sealed windows, blocked doors, filled lungs. People were found where they waited, in hallways, in corners, against each other. They did not fall dramatically, they simply stopped. Outside, the city disappeared layer by layer. Streets vanished first, then homes, then temples. The mountain continued long after Pompeii was silent. When it finally rested, the city was gone. Not destroyed, not scattered. Preserved. Buried so completely that time itself lost track of it. Years passed, then decades, then centuries. Above the buried city, life returned. Vines grew, houses were built, children played. No one knew what lay beneath their feet until hands began to dig. What they found was not ruins. It was moments. A loaf of bread still in an oven, a cup left on a table. A city interrupted, not ended. Pompeii did not become history because it fell. It became history because it never got the chance to leave. Pompeii did not disappear in fire. It disappeared in layers. Layer after layer, the city was sealed away, not as ruins, but as evidence. Time moved on above it. Empires rose and collapsed. Languages changed. Names were forgotten. Pompeii stayed exactly where it was left. When it was found again, people expected stones, broken walls, empty streets. Instead, they found interruption. A meal never eaten, a door never closed, a decision never completed. The city had been paused, not ended. And that is why it feels different. Most ancient cities feel distant. Pompeii feels unfinished. Because its people didn't vanish in legend. They vanished mid-moment. They were not heroes. They were not warned chosen ones. They were ordinary people who believed tomorrow would come. Pompeii teaches nothing new. That is what makes it terrifying. We recognize ourselves in it. The hesitation, the delay, the belief that danger always gives a second chance. The city did not fall because people were foolish. It fell because they were human, because they waited, because they hoped, because they believed there was still time. Pompeii stands as a place where time was offered and quietly taken back, not by anger, not by punishment, but by indifference. The mountain did not hate them. It simply continued. And beneath the streets of modern life, Pompeii still waits, not to scare us, but to remind us Some places don't need to be destroyed to be terrifying. They only need to be left behind exactly as they were when everything stopped.